Hello everyone, welcome to the daily newspaper analysis of the Shankar IAS Academy, brought to you by the Civil Media team. And this is Abhinaya Sampath for the current affairs video of the date 24th of December 2024. So displayed here are the list of articles for today. The first article talks about the appointment of the new chairperson of the National Human Rights Commission. The next article titled The Octopuses from the Hindu discusses about the importance of the animal octopus and their problems when it comes to the animal welfare and ethical concerns. The third article titled Regulators Must Coordinate to Protect the Consumer Rights talks about the importance of consumer rights and the role of regulators in protecting their consumer rights for many goods and services. And this article is from the Livement. And the last article discusses about the India's green cover but still not having a positive appearance, and this article is from the Indian Express. So without any much delay, let's get into the articles discussion one by one. Moving on to the first article for today, the article titled Regulators Must Coordinate to Protect the Consumer Rights. So this article discusses how important the role of regulator when it comes to protecting the rights of consumer for a particular goods and services. So thus for a country like India, when it comes to their infrastructural and the technological development such as the digital platforms or the e-commerces, it stands as a challenge for the regulators in protecting the consumer rights. So there is a need for unified strategies and at the same time having a regulated forum when it comes to the grievance redressal, and at the same time having an adaptive policy of being considerate of the consumer, thus bringing in a consumer centric policy. So in light of this article, we'd be seeing few types of consumer rights, and at the same time we'd be seeing the role of few regulators of consumer rights. So regulators is nothing but an organization on bringing in a task to monitor or overseeing or enforcing the laws when it comes to the rules and regulations of the regulators of a particular goods and services. Now looking into the consumer rights in India, it is protected under the Consumer Protection Act of 2019. So earlier it was Consumer Protection Act of 1986, but in 2019 it was amended. So their objective is to bring a fair treatment and protection from the exploitation of consumers from the goods and services around. So let us see what is right to safety first. It is a type of consumer right where it can be defined as protecting the consumers from any hazardous or any dangerous goods or services present. So for example, ensuring safety when it comes to foods or drugs and any other appliances, or giving protection against any defective goods or services or any contaminated foods and so on. Looking into the legal framework when it comes to the right to safety, standards set by the FSSAI, that is the Food Safety Standard, that is the Food Safety and Standard Authority of India for the protection of consumers when it comes to certain foods and so on, and at the same time BIS, Bureau of Indian Standards when it comes to protecting the rights of consumers when it comes to certain products. Now looking into the next type, the right to information when it comes to consumer rights. Here it can be defined as how the consumers should be informed about the quality, quantity, purity, price and the standard of the goods and services. So when it comes to the right of information, these 5 informations are very important for a consumer to know. For example, we can take the example of looking into knowing the ingredients of a packaged food, having a clear labeling when it comes to packaged food, and looking into the terms and conditions in a packaged food or their expiry date. Now looking into their legal framework, here any misleading advertisements or incorrect information can be given penalties under the Consumer Protection Act of India. Now looking into the next type, that is the right to choose under the consumer rights. Here the consumer are entitled to choose whatever products that they would like to buy under a fair competitive price for any goods and services without any forcing them into monopolies and so on. For example, they can select their choice of preference when it comes to any mobile networks or any insurance policy, so that they are not bundled into any forcing. Now looking into their legal framework when it comes to protecting their rights, all the laws are enforced under the Competition Commission of India. So it is a regulatory framework where it promotes competition, at the same time it ensures the protection of consumer rights. And finally, looking into the other type of consumer rights, that is the right to be heard. Here it can be defined as a consumer right where the consumers have all right for their grievances to be heard through a regulatory or a platform or a forum, and it need to be addressed properly. Thus it promotes fair and prompt responses. So here, for example, filing complaints in all levels, that is the state, district, national and international level, and at the same time having complaints mechanisms like the national consumer helpline, or bringing in ombudsman services for any banking or insurance programs. Now looking into the authorities for consumer protection, first is the Central Consumer Protection Authority, that is the CCPA. These are the regulators when it comes to consumer rights protection. It is established under the Consumer Protection Act of 2019. Now looking into their roles and powers, their role is to bring in investigation when there is any grievances at readdressal, and imposing penalties for any false ad. So thus they recall all those unsafe goods and services and bring in refunds for the consumers so that they can have a fair and prompt response. Next regulator would be National Consumer Disputes Redressal Commission, that is the NCDRC. So their purpose is to be as an apex, that is the head when it comes to consumer grievances forum. So when it comes to their jurisdiction, they are having cases almost exceeding 2 crore in nature, and their role is to resolve disputes for timely justice for the consumers. Next is the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. Here their purpose is to safeguard the telecom consumer services and their interests. So they monitor the telecom providers for fairness and quality resolution. They try to bring in resolving of the complaints for on billing, network issues, service quality, and ensuring tariff transparency. So even when there is electric shutdowns and so on, the first and foremost thing is we tend to contact the telecom regulatory service to know on the information and so on. So here not only on tariff transparency, there is transparency on the regulatory reforms also. Now the next regulatory forum would be Securities and Exchange Board of India, that is the SEBI. Here their purpose is to protect the investors from the interest and regulate the securities market. Here their role is to ensure transparency in stock market transactions, to address the fraud and investors when it comes to their grievances, and have a regulate brokers and mutual funds, so there is fair and competitive interaction in the market. So along with the SEBI, we can also include the FSSAI. Now I hope there is a clear understanding on the consumer rights and a basic understanding on the consumer rights. Now let us move on to a prelims practice question. Consider the following statement regarding National Consumer Disputes Redressal Commission. It is an apex consumer grievance redressal forum in India. It is set up under the Consumer Protection Act of 1986. It deals with cases where the claim amount exceeds 15,000 crore. So how many of the above statements are correct? So only these two statements are right. Now moving on to the second news titled Why the Growth of India's Overall Green Cover is Not All Good News. So under this article, it explains how the overall green cover of India has expanded, but it is not positive in nature, as these dense forests are replaced by less valuable plantations. And this article brings in the need for emphasizing the importance of having natural forest over artificial afforestation to increase the sustainable development through environment. So in light of this article, we'll be seeing about the report and the forest coverage of India. So the Indian State of Forest Report, that is the ISFR, is published by the Forest Survey of India. It is an organization under the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, that is the MOEFCC. And this report is established under the frequency of biennially, that is every 2 years this report is being established. Now let us look into the forest cover classification. First is the dense forest classification. Here there is canopy cover of more than 70% when it comes to forest. So these forests are rich in high biodiversity along with their species, plantations and so on, and they are very very crucial for the carbon storage and water regulation when it comes to their importance. So for example, in India, forest of Sundarban mangroves and at the same time forest of the Western Ghats can be an example when it comes to the dense forest. So here in 2023, the coverage of dense forest have been reduced, that we'll be seeing in further slides. So dense forests are very very important and crucial when it comes to their climate resilience. Now the next type would be moderately dense forest. They are known as the transition zone, where they cover the canopy cover of almost 40 to 70 percentage of dense forest and their plantations. Why they are known as transition zone? Because of their transitioning ability from dense to degraded forest. So here for example, the central Indian forest of the Madhya Pradesh and the Chhattisgarh can be taken as an example, and at the same time the northern eastern hills forest of the Nagaland can be taken as an example. Now looking into the open forests, here almost 10 to 40 percentage of canopy cover are there, and it also includes sparse tree cover and so on, that is having a very limited ecosystem as compared to the dense forest. For example, arid forest zone of Rajasthan can be taken as an example. Also, for example, we can take the Deccan thorn scrub of Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra. And next and the last classification would be the plantations. These are man-made forests where it is often monoculture in nature. For example, the eucalyptus practice in Tamil Nadu, and at the same time the teak plantations in Madhya Pradesh. Plantations can be taken as a solid example where they contribute to the green cover, but when it comes to the natural forest or have been an example of bringing in a meaningful biodiversity engagement, these plantations lack. Now I hope there is a clear understanding of the classifications of forest. Now let us look into about the report. What are the key trends in the report which was found between the year 2003 to 2023? So first, there has been an increase in the overall green cover, that is almost 5,000 square kilometer in nature. Now looking into this overall green cover, here it involves the dominance of open forest, which is not much of the dense forest, where there is involvement of plantations and other artificial afforestation plants, and there is dominance of these open forests where there is almost 3,000 square kilometer in increase, and it also includes a decline in the dense forest. So we can see how the report is contradictory, where there is overall coverage but the dense forest which gives a natural impact is reduced, and the open forest which gives artificial impact is in increase. So there is a significant loss in the place of northeast and central India, where almost 2,000 square kilometers of dense forest is being lost, and of course it leads to the loss of biodiversity at the end of the day. So the report talks about the plantation driven growth. Here of course the significant increase in plantations, it leads to lack of ecological benefits compared to the natural forest. It led to the forest degradation, where degradation of moderately dense forest into open forest is a trend in that report, and we can see the factors due to which there is forest degradation. First is the deforestation, agriculture when it comes to their involvement of using the land. So land usage is much more when it comes to agriculture, and usage of water also. Then having infrastructural development which leading to both building as well as energy increase when it comes to their development. So these are the factors when it comes to the forest degradation, and the report also talks about the regional variations. For example, when it comes to northeast and central India, there is a loss of significant dense forest, and as I've told on the examples, the semi-arid and the urban regions, these places have gains in the green cover through plantations and afforestation, but it's not natural in end. Thus, these have an impact on the biodiversity and ecology, where there is decline of biodiversity and weakening of the ecosystem services, that is the water regulation and carbon sequestration. So, along with the forest degradation, it has an impact in the carbon stock trends, where even though there is an increase in the forest carbon stock, there is a decline in these dense forest, as it slows down the growth rate of carbon stock. So I hope we have understood the analysis of the report, and we have seen the importance of the classification of the forest cover in India along with their examples. So now let us move on to a mains question. The increase in India's green cover over the last 2 decades is primarily due to natural forest regeneration. Dense forests, which are critical for biodiversity, have declined in the area between 2003 and 23. The monoculture plantation contributes significantly to the increase in India's overall green cover. Of course, only these 2 sentences are right. Now moving on to the next article, here titled Octopuses and Their Relatives Are a New Animal Welfare Frontier. So this article discusses nothing but the importance of the most intelligent, highly intelligent invertebrate, which is the octopus, which are known for their highly intelligent abilities such as problem solving, having a strong memory, and then having a quick ability to learn anything. So along with the basics of this octopus, the article also highlights few issues when it comes to the complexity of octopuses in the field of research, their ethical concerns when it comes to their treatment in the aquaculture, and at the same time having in a human regulation, where there is importance of the animal welfare, and there is a need for having a new animal welfare frontier. So in light of this article, first let us see a basics of about this animal. So the scientific name for octopus would be known as the cephalopod. So this animal comes under the classification of mollusca phylum, where mollusca phylum is nothing but a diverse group of organisms which are invertebrate in nature. So invertebrate is nothing but organisms which lack a spinal column or a backbone. So this mollusca phylum, it includes octopuses, squids and cuttlefish in nature. So the squids and cuttlefish are also known to be cephalopod classification in nature. These animals fall under the subclassification called Collaudia, where they exclude the animal called nautiluses, where they are known to be shelled molluscs. So under the mollusca phylum, there also includes nautiluses, which are shelled molluscs, but when it comes to the other classification under the mollusca, that is the cephalopod classification, they are known to be having less or reducted or no shells. So I hope this classification is clear. Now looking into the unique features when it comes to the octopus, here they have advanced nervous system, where they are known to be having the W-shaped pupils for enhanced vision. And octopuses, when it comes to octopuses, they almost have 500 million neurons. More than 300 are placed in the arms or the octopuses, where it questions the traditional way of having intelligence in nature. So as a human generation, we are known to be having our nervous system or our intelligence system through the brain, but octopus defies all of those traditional mechanisms of having intelligence, where the neurons are present in the arms in itself, where more than 300 million are present in their arms in itself. So the octopuses are known for their remarkable camouflage abilities, and at the same time when it comes to their behaviors, not only having their powerful memory and so on, they are known to mimicry, they are known for their active hunting abilities. So it helps them to stand as a survival of fittest in the aquamarine region in itself, making it one of the prominent or the key species when it comes to the Animalia kingdom in itself. Now looking into their size diversity, they are known to be having range from small squids known as the Idiocephalus to giant squids. Here looking into their diverse habitats, they are known to be under the deep sea, shallow reefs and so on. Looking into their brain complexity, they are influenced by the environment in itself. So they have the ability to manipulate their own environment to make sure through the abilities of camouflage they manipulate their environment, and at the same time the other species around, so they are survived at the end of the day. Now looking into their cognition and intelligence, looking into the brain and neuron system, they have a distributed nervous system where more neurons are in the arms. They have the ability to make independent decision making, and they have their central brain focusing on visual processing. So as I told before, they have a powerful eyesight, so it makes them more visible around their environment. Now when it comes to their learning and memory capacity, they form associations, they like to be in single as well as in group, and exhibit a self-control behavior. Their problem solving abilities, that is the opening of jars, navigating the mazes. We have seen a lot of funny videos in YouTube when it comes to the ability of the octopus to get through any shallow holes or opening any jar or getting into the jars and so on. So they are known to be very intelligent in nature. And comparing to the vertebrates, just they are equally comparable to the intelligence when it comes to the birds such as the starlings, and mammals such as the rabbits. So they have in comparison with the vertebrates also. Now looking into their animal welfare and ethical concerns when it comes to octopuses safety, looking into the legislative actions in California, Washington, they banned on the octopus farming in 2024, questioning the ethicality and inclusivity of octopuses. Also, there was a proposed US ban on the octopus farming and imports of octopuses. Now, looking into the international guidances in the protection of octopus, the European Union has set ethical standards for the cephalopod research in the 2011, and also a non-governmental or a non-profit organization called the AAALAC, that is the Association for Assessment and Accreditation of Laboratory Animal Care International, which was established in 1965, focused on the humane treatment of animals in research, testing, and when it comes to education and so on. So their function is to bring in accreditation process, bringing in the assessment and research process to collect the data on their human treatment, and at the same time bringing a guideline for the development and advocacy interrogation when it comes to any ethical violations of these animals. So I hope there is a clear understanding on the basics of the octopus and few organization when it comes to their animal welfare and ethical concerns. Which international body first introduced ethical standards for cephalopod research? And the answer is European Union. Now moving on to the next article here, the President has appointed the former Supreme Court judge, that is Justice V. Subramanian, as the new chairperson of the National Human Rights Commission. So in light of this article, we'll be seeing few basics or the foundations of this commission. Now looking into the establishment and mandate, here the National Human Rights Commission is a statutory body. So statutory body is nothing but body or an organization which has been created under a law or a statute which is being passed by a legislature. So it was established in 1993 under the Protection of Human Rights Act 1993. So this act comes under the Constitution of the National Human Rights Commission, where they protect anything which comes under the National Human Rights Commission or State Human Rights Commission or any National Human Rights courts. So I hope there is a clear understanding about the establishment and mandate. Now looking into their functions, first they investigate human rights violations such as investigating a public servant. Next one, they review factors inhibiting human rights enjoyment. For example, even it includes the act of terrorism also. The third one would be they study the international human rights instruments so that they can bring in recommendation to implement human rights for effective management. Fourth one would be they undertake human rights research in the field of human rights study in itself. Fifth one would be they monitor jail conditions, for example, so that they can have a look into the living conditions of the inmates. And the next one would be they promoting human rights education and awareness through publications, media, social media, seminars and so on. And finally, they encourage the efforts of many NGOs where they fight for the human rights engagement altogether. Now, looking into their composition, first about the chairperson, the first and primary person would be the chairperson, where they are former Chief Justice of India or Supreme Court judge. Now, looking into the next category in the composition, which comprises the members of the National Human Rights Commission, where there is a member of one who is former Supreme Court judge, and one member who is a former High Court Chief Justice, and other three members with human rights expertise are in the members committee, where at least one should be women. And the third category when it comes to their composition would be the ex officio members, where chairpersons of the national commissions, including members from the category of scheduled castes, scheduled tribes who are women, minorities, and including child rights, disabilities, and backward classes, and so on. Now, looking into the appointment process, the chairperson is appointed by the President of India based on the recommendations by a high power committee. So, let us see what is a high power committee. So, this committee is nothing but having senior most officers from higher rank from different organizations who come in together to bring in a collective work for the improvement of the organizations and their work through it. So this high power committee brings in the recommendation for the appointment process of the National Human Rights Commission. So they include Prime Minister, who is a chairperson, then Home Minister, then leaders of the opposition of the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, and also includes the Speaker of Lok Sabha and the Deputy Chairman of the Rajya Sabha. So we can see how important the appointment process is when it comes to the National Human Rights Commission formation. Now, looking into the tenure of the chairperson and the members, their term is for 3 years or up to the age of 70, whichever is earlier. And looking into the eligibility, they are eligible for reappointment under the Protection of Human Rights Act of 1993, which is exclusive to the National Human Rights Commission. So the National Human Rights Commission has a specialized core of groups which focus on these many categories, as there is inclusivity and equity being justice and served. The first category would be including the older person, having environment and climate change inclusion, then human rights defenders, then bonded labor people who are into the bonded labor culture, then the LGBTQI rights are being protected, then also they focus on disabilities, health, food rights, women rights, and so on. And finally, they also protect the criminal justice and the other system reforms such as the jail reforms when it comes to the Human Rights Commission. So they cover every aspect and every priority of different sections of a society. Now we have seen the National Human Rights Commission. So there is a sub-wing when it comes to National Human Rights Commission, that is the State Human Rights Commission, where almost in India 25 states have the State Human Rights Commission to address state specific human rights concern. Now let us look into few cases when it comes to the National Human Rights Commission, so that we can have an understanding and their impact in the larger economy. First one would be the case of Manoj and Another versus Union of India in 2014, where it directed better compensation and rehabilitation for the victims, which include the custodial deaths also. Custodial deaths is nothing but the deaths in the police custody or during the trial or when serving a sentence. So they also the role of National Human Rights Commission when it comes to custodial deaths includes on advocating accountability and compensation issued, where there are recommendations for other police reforms to ensure adherence to human rights also. And in the case of vulnerable groups, the National Human Rights Commission have intervened in the violations which affecting the groups of scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, person with disabilities, and so on. They also focused on education, employment, and basic services for these groups when it comes to been acting as a vulnerable group. Now I hope there is a clear understanding about the basics of the National Human Rights Commission, and let us move on to a prelims question. Which of the following is not a function of National Human Rights Commission? And the correct answer is granting punishments to violators of human rights. So I hope you are at the end of this video. Don't forget to give a like, comment and share the video, and to further not to miss any other contents, subscribe to our channel. Thank you and have a nice day.